Hello and welcome to the TechGig podcast, folks. I am Pahi Mehra, your host, and we are here to discuss how artificial intelligence and machine learning powered smart invoice management solutions enable financial transformation for companies. As companies look towards maintaining elective spending and aligning their financial plans with the new hybrid work models, emerging technologies like AI and ML not only make the process faster, efficient, but also helps companies ensure compliance and deliver a seamless employee experience. A lot of companies altered their business strategies to tide over future disruptions and maintain growth while adding value for their employees as well as customers. To talk about this and much more, I am here in conversation with Ben Price, COO, SAP Concur APAC. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thanks, Pahi. Really nice to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So thanks for having me. As a little bit of background, it's a SAP Concur, and to your point, we've been in business now 50 years, and so there's a lot of experience, a lot of customer stories. So really look forward to sharing those outcome stories with you and everyone else today.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So let's just get started with the questions. So my first question is, how is employee experience significant for businesses, especially innovation-based tech organizations like SAP Concur?
Yeah, thanks. So where's the right place to start in this one on the SAP Concur front? I guess I'd probably start with, what do you want to achieve? So you and I look at employee experience, right? And we think about business and business productivity. That's kind of old school. Now you'd look at it and go, what are the guided steps that I want myself and my employees to execute to get the best business outcome in the quickest time? And that's when that innovation-based approach, AI, ML, that's where that really plays a role, because it gives your experience to your employees, and it happens to be a best practice experience, it happens to be a guided experience, and it happens to be a point of difference. So it's like having instant experience. So all those things add up. And really, why do I think it's important? Actually, it gives you and your company a bit of a leading advantage on the talent side, because there's a whole war for talent going on at the moment, right? There's not enough people with enough skills to satisfy all the jobs. True in India, true in America, true in Australia, true in Japan, right? So having this employee experience that is better than other organizations, that makes your employees better, guided journeys, for example, that gives you a point of difference in the war for talent, meaning the good engineers, the good salespeople, the good marketing people, they end up with you. So any money you invest in employee experience pays off in multiple ways.
So the next question is, attrition has become a major challenge for tech companies nowadays. So how SAP Concur is retaining employees while keeping the employment cost on the lower side?
Yeah, it's a great question. We could probably do a whole nother podcast on this one, if I'm honest. So first of all, one thing that I think SAP Concur is doing well is we're trying to solve business problems that are relevant, that people can rally behind, and they really like trying to solve. So an example there is sustainable business travel. It's something that is very achievable, and as businesses and corporations return to travel, we want to make sure they make smart choices that looks after the planet, be that airfares, green hotels, renting that hybrid car in North America, for example, right? But that gives our employees a point of difference, because they're helping the world be better, our customers be better, and of course, people want to work for companies that do good things. Then you pair that with some employee benefits, like we've got a thing called Pledge to Flex, talking about the hybrid model. But it's just not working from home or being in the office. You need to give tools, for example, so the work is still productive and they're supported in doing their work. So you need to make sure that internal environment is supportive and conducive. The third one that I'd probably put in there, which is a good thing for us from a Concur perspective, is really growth. As a business, we are seeing the business uptake, and so that's giving a career option to our employees. So in a good way, many of our employees are only with us for a few years because they move to other parts of SAP or get promoted and take on other roles within SAP Concur. So you put those different areas together and you see a great story around retention, or flip it around for people listening to the podcast. There's some tips in there that you can think about. So think about doing good things, sustainable business travel, talking about it, walking the talk, making sure you're a proper green company, or think about that pledge to flex, making that environment as good as it can be, because that will be a point of difference in retaining your employees.
So the next question is, how are AI and ML redefining business operations for better cost management in organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I might try and answer it in a slightly different form and go, hey, what am I seeing in our install base, or what am I seeing in the customers in general? What I see is about 8.5 out of every 10 customers I meet say that the business environment, or that the pandemic environment, forced them to be more adaptable and flexible. And I say forced because some of these companies didn't want to change. We have some very traditional companies that aren't really open to that experimentation or that quick shift in strategy. And so the business environment of the last few years has forced them to change. So of course, when you change, what do you want to do? Do you want to change from a people perspective, a business perspective, a technology perspective? And that's the link to the AI and ML, because many people wanted to change using intelligent technologies. And in that AI and ML example, there then opens a plethora of tools that you can use. And I would look at it from an SAP Concur perspective and go, actually, we have a bunch of those tools that you can use as well. So there's everything from when I scan a receipt, I don't have to touch a bit of paper because it's a digital receipt that goes straight in the system. I have a whole bunch that do things like on audit. So as that company changes their policy or their operating environment, I have a whole bunch of artificial intelligence that does audits on a compliance perspective to make sure the cost management obligations are met. So AI doing that, where in the old days a few years ago, people would have done that. And then keep going down that path. What we saw in the last few years is actually fraud increased. And actually out of, say you've got 100 people here on the podcast at the moment, 50% would say that fraud went up since the beginning of the pandemic, 1 out of every 2. And so with AI and ML, you can make sure you can use the tools available in SAP Concur to see what the fraud pattern is or is not, and then make that translate into business savings. So why do I say that? What we estimate is 5% of revenue loss is revenue loss to fraud every year, and that's a lot of money. So any of the AI and ML tools that you use today, that will help in your cost management, that will help your organization get better, that will mean more money for your company. So there's a lot you can do from an SAP Concur perspective that really makes a difference today.
Okay, very well put, Ben. So how are cloud-based solutions helping organizations reduce risk and close costly loopholes?
Yeah, I probably struggle to answer this question if I'm honest. It's an excellent question, Pahi. So first of all, cloud has a whole bunch of benefits. And so whether you talk about the automation side, the technology side, the innovation side, coming from an SAP point of view, we were used to, when I started working 20 odd years ago, you'd have an ERP project implemented over a 1 or 2 time year period. They'd do an upgrade of that probably in year 4 or year 5 and use that system probably for a 7 to 9 year period. You look at the cloud solution today and it's always on and it's always in innovation mode. So SAP Concur is giving you business-based innovations to help you and your company every day, and the cloud model helps you do it. And then to your point on costly loopholes, actually we have a big part of the market already covered. So in India, over 1,300 customers. So you get a big sense of what normal looks like and you can expose that to your customers. So what a normal project looks like from a remote delivery point of view, what a normal benchmarking approach looks like that leads to value, how many days for an expense to be approved, how many days for an invoice to be looked and reviewed and approved, your spend you have with certain carriers, the airlines, for example, Air India. So you can use the tool to close these loopholes on a project sense or a business sense. So I guess where I'm going there is innovations, always on, always making a difference, matching that with best practice, put those together, and that's the answer. But we could probably talk a lot more about that one. So I really encourage your listeners out there to contact me via LinkedIn, because happy to share more stories, or we're doing a bunch of events where we're doing some of the lessons learned from year 2022. Happy to share in that forum as well.
Okay, so talking about the innovations, what kind of future tech innovations that we can look forward to from SAP Concur?
Oh, I don't even, there's so many here. So we as a Concur team, first of all, I'm very proud to say we're adding more engineers in our India location. So many of the innovations that you and I are going to talk about are being developed in India for the India market first, and then going on to the bigger world out there. So maybe my answer here is in two buckets. We as an SAP Concur team are innovating a lot. And so to your point earlier around AI and ML, there is a whole part going on there that basically has an expense report that writes itself. So PR, I'm much older than you, right? So I'm 47 this year. In the old days when I used to do my expenses, I used to have a receipt and stick it to a bit of paper, put it in the photocopier, make a digital image and send it off. Where we're up to now is actually the machines can write that for me, meaning they know I took a taxi, I stayed in a hotel, I had lunch with a customer. They can put all that into the expense system. They can see it's compliant to policy, tell the ERP to give me the money, and politely by the time I'm off my flight, my expense report is refunded, meaning the money is in my bank account ready to go, which makes my wife happy. So saying that is easy, but there's a lot of technology that goes behind that. And so whether it's RPA, AI, ML, all this kind of stuff, the OCR work, there is just a mountain of work. But I say it in a really great way because technology is making us smarter, making the user experience better, and that's what's really changing the game for us. The second innovation I would talk about is actually one we're doing with our partners. So in the travel and expense area, we partner a lot. So whether it's with your airlines, with your hotels, with your Olas, Ubers, Grabs, all these kind of guys, there's this ecosystem of partners, and we want to innovate with them. And so one of my favorites is talking about the sustainability side and talking about some of the partnerships with some of the sustainable travel companies or carbon tracking companies, for example. These new partnerships are going to make a difference in our business environment. So as that Indian organization thinks about its ESG obligations and how they're going to report them to the Nifty 50, for example, that's going to make a difference. Those partnerships are going to make it easy for our customers to talk about things that matter, in this case, sustainability. So do it ourselves, do it with partner, but really do lots and lots of innovations in that always on environment. Great question.
Thank you, Ben. And I think very good news for India indeed. So, thank you so much for these amazing insights and answering all our questions. And a very great thank you for tuning in to all our audience. And it's a wrap from our side. Stay tuned to TechGig for all our latest tech updates. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, everybody.